Does teaching kids about sexuality confuse them or protect them? This is one of the most controversial questions in education today, but when we look at the research, the answer is actually quite clear. In this video, I will show you how comprehensive sex education tailored to children's age and development can reduce bullying, improve mental health, and make schools safer for everyone.
I'm Diogo Moya, the author of 2030, The New School, a story about teenagers navigating a groundbreaking new education system.
Across schools worldwide, LGBTQIA+ students and other minorities, they still face alarming levels of bullying and harassment. Why? One of the major reasons is the lack of inclusive, age-appropriate sex education. And it's not just about helping queer kids. When majority groups, cisgender, heterosexual, they aren't taught about sexual diversity, then they are more likely to become bullies, hold biased views, and cause harm. And that's a disservice to everyone. So, if we want fewer bullies and fewer mental health crises, sex education in schools isn't just helpful, it's essential. Take Canada's SOGI 123 education initiative, developed in British Columbia. It equips teachers with tools and training to create inclusive classrooms regardless of students' sexual orientation or gender identity. A major study from the Stigma and Resilience Among Vulnerable Youth Center analyzed data from over 98,000 students in 482 schools, and here's what they found. The training and support for school staff that SOGI 123 provides, plus the support for students through policies, teaching materials, and strategies to foster inclusive schools together reduced some form of bullying and sexual orientation discrimination targeted toward LGBT youth. The longer SOGI 123 were in a school, the greater the impact toward reducing bullying and sexual orientation discrimination. Let's not forget that this research was led by PhDs in public health, nursing, and sexual health. These are the people we should be listening to and not to fear-based rhetoric. 6-year-olds understand more than you think. I have taught in public elementary schools, and I have seen 6-year-olds bully each other for being different. If a child is mature enough to harass someone, then they are mature enough to learn why bullying is wrong. For example, if a child is mature enough to attack another kid, calling them the F word, then they are mature enough to be educated, because the raw reality is that some 6-year-old kids, they can be very aggressive and bullies, and if we want to make sure that these kids don't become aggressive, it's extremely important that they are educated in several aspects, including sex education. Children that age, they already read fairy tales where a prince marries a princess. So why not show them that a prince can marry another prince, or a princess can marry another princess? If they can understand affection and kindness, they can also understand inclusion. The American Academy of Pediatrics states that comprehensive sex education should begin across the developmental spectrum, including early childhood. Topics suitable for ages 6-7 include basic anatomy, personal space, respect, consent in a simple, relatable language. Transgender education. This is one of the most sensitive topics, transgender identity. We'll talk about it on the episode 2, but for now, what I would like to say is that it's absolutely important that kids and teenagers, they learn about transgenderism. Why? Because if they understand that cisgenderism exists, they can understand that transgenderism exists. According to this research named Transgender Children and Young People, how the evidence can point the way forward, children develop a clear sense of gender identity between ages 3 to 7, understanding differences between biological sex, gender identity, and gender expression. This is a research available on the National Library of Medicine. And why I believe it's important to look deep into these researches, because today we have very different opinions regarding to sex education in schools. And every view and opinion matters. Some people say it's important for children to have sex education. Some people say it's not. But according to some of these researches that I just showed you, if we want to make sure that kids understand about sexuality, if we want bullying and harassment to stop, then they have to be educated. Ignoring gender diversity doesn't protect innocence, it invites hostility. This other research shows that creating a curriculum in early education classrooms can help students understand gender as a spectrum and that stereotypes are not always correct. This research shows that gender-inclusive lesson plans discussing gender role pronouns and diversity through play support acceptance and emotional safety for all kids. Again, it's not my opinion. It's research. When it comes to implementing sex education in schools, I have heard countless arguments like kids are going to get confused and they shouldn't be exposed to this content. And I know this is very controversial, especially when it comes to sexual orientation and gender identity, because some conservative people might say that kids cannot be exposed to this content and it's going to confuse them, but this is not accurate. Like this research, for example, from the World Health Organization shows that the UN's global guidance indicates that comprehensive sexual education should start at the age of 5, when formal education typically begins. The same research shows that abstinence-based programs are ineffective in preventing early sexual activity and risk-taking behavior, and potentially harmful to young people's sexual and reproductive health. The study also shows with young learners, teaching about sexuality does not mean teaching about sex. For instance, for younger age groups, comprehensive sex education might help children learn about their bodies and to recognize their feelings and emotions while discussing family life, different types of relationships, decision-making, the basic principles of consent, and what to do if violence, bullying, or abuse occur. When people say that teaching young children about sex education will confuse them, they overlook a simple truth. 6-year-olds, they get confused about everything, whether it's math, science, or reading. They come home with questions, and that's a normal part of learning. Sex education is no different. Confusion isn't a danger, it's a doorway to understanding, and it's the role of parents and educators to guide them through it. What matters most is that the information is age-appropriate and honest, and as scientific research clearly shows, comprehensive sex education for young children leads to better outcomes, less bullying, healthier boundaries, and a more respectful school environment. It's not harmful, it's essential. This is an incredible research, 3 decades of research, the case for comprehensive sex education by Dr. Eva Goldfarb and Lisa Lieberman. This research presents a systematic review of literature spanning over 30 years to evaluate the effectiveness of comprehensive sex education in schools. And this review found that CSC contributes to various beneficial outcomes, including appreciation of sexual diversity, development of healthy relationships, prevention of child sex abuse, improved social and emotional learning. This extensive review confirms the benefits of comprehensive sex education, advocating for its implementation across various grade levels. Let me tell you a quick story. I'm a gay man who grew up in São Paulo, Brazil, raised by conservative parents. I started experiencing severe bullying when I was just 7 years old, and it lasted for years and years, relentless harassment, humiliation, and emotional wounds that took a long time to even begin to heal. It wasn't until high school that things finally eased, and even then, the damage had been done. So I've spent years in therapy trying to process the violence, the shame, and the suppression of emotions I carried through my entire childhood and adolescence. But my story isn't unique. It's the story of millions of LGBTQIA+ people around the world. People who were failed by an education system that didn't teach empathy, inclusion, or emotional awareness. A system that left kids like me unprotected. That's why I'm speaking up, because if there's one thing that I want to end starting today, it's bullying in schools. And after years of studying education, self-awareness, and child development, I can tell you with certainty, comprehensive education, including age-appropriate sex education, does reduce violence. The research proves it, the evidence is clear, and it's time we stop ignoring it. I wish you lots of love.